Hey everyone, welcome back to my second video in biomedical engineering. And specifically today, I want to talk about what is biomedical engineering, what are the different pathways that you can start thinking about if you are interested in a career for biomedical engineering. So there's many different pathways. I want to just start off by saying that. And I think last video I had briefly mentioned the fact that I had actually gotten into biomedical engineering just because I realized that aerospace engineering wasn't for me and I'm not going to like it. So I chose biomedical engineering because I realized that the types of things I could make were really interesting. Even though I knew I hated biology, I didn't really like physics that much, and I didn't want to have to do anything with medicine. I had told my parents I'm not going to do medicine, I'm not going to be a doctor. And I still ended up choosing this route. And a lot of you might think at first, like, I'm crazy. Why would I choose to do that? But my ultimate goal and my passion was creating something of high impact and high value where I'm close to everyday people, patients, but I'm not exactly a doctor. I still understand a lot of things that a doctor does, and I want to be able to be the brains behind that device or the product that you or I or any everyday people are using or interacting with. And I realized that, biology, physics, yeah, I'll take a couple classes. It's fine. But at the end of the day, do I get to do what I truly love? Yes. And I ended up just actually liking biology and physics over time. And a primary driver for me not liking biology and physics in the first place was because I honestly wasn't that good at it. I'm not even gonna lie, I struggled with biology all the time. I never got A's. I never got A's in biology. I don't know why it was such a difficult concept for me, and maybe it was a lot of memorizing, and I didn't care about photosynthesis. I didn't care about cellular respiration. I was like, who cares? Give me something more fun. And the parts of biology that I liked was more along the lines of human anatomy, physiology. How do systems interact with people? How do devices interact with people? Tell me more about orthopedics and the cells that generate when you put an implant in a bone structure, osteoblasts. That stuff really excited me over time, and I found my love of biology and physics just a little bit differently than what you get taught in general bio or gen chem or gen physics. So I realized that it took some time, but once I actually got into the more detailed courses where it actually got fun and interesting and I actually understood why I was taking this major and the classes I was taking, that's where I was like, okay, wait, I actually kind of like this now. And I don't completely hate biology and physics like I thought I did. And I thought that I might hate my major. So, going into what you can actually do as a biomedical engineering. So, there's a ton of pathways. And what I'm about to say does not by any means capture all the pathways. There are friends that have literally gone to med school after biomedical engineering. They choose biomedical engineering because it's a great backup. Say they don't get into med school, they have that major to lean on to find a job in during their gap year, or they want to use their engineering background to ultimately help them be a better doctor. So there's people who have gone straight to medical school. There is a smaller fraction that go into dental school because you can still meet a lot of the requirements for dental schools and you can still get into dental school. Another thing, another third pathway, and also a bit more rare, is law. There are people who get into law. You can do litigation for different patents in biomedical engineering field. I know professors who have even done like litigation law as a profession because they have that PhD and that doctorate knowledge where they can actually fight cases and talk about the biomechanics of maybe why an implant failed, and that's what they need in a jury case. So there's so many different pathways you can go down. You can go down any of these medical routes or these lawyer routes. You can definitely do that because biomedical engineering encompasses a broad range of different courses, so you can make and customize your pathway to go in whatever direction you want. Now, if you're going to stay in the traditional biomedical engineering pathway, there's a ton of stuff you can do there too. So if you want to focus specifically more in the biology area, tissue engineering is a great space. Cell culture, so you're literally dealing with the cells, you're learning how to cultivate them, you're creating biotherapeutics, you can do 3D printing, but of organs on a chip. that stuff is really, really cool. Artificial organs, that also falls kind of within the realm of biology. But let's say you want to do something a little bit more electrical engineering. You can go into the robotics and signal and image processing of the electrical engineering portion of biomedical engineering. So let's say you put like electrodes on yourself and you want to understand how does that signal transmit into data, and how can I use that data to do even more cooler things, or maybe make some electrical system where I am measuring this or that. Or you want to look at robotic systems in surgeries and operating rooms where you have this, there's something called Da Vinci. And this Da Vinci robot is doing these robotic surgeries where you might have heard of, and the surgeons can do more precise surgery on these patients. So it's not as inaccurate, it's a better healing time because it's more precise and accurate. But those are a couple things that you can do. But let's say you want to get more into the biochem side. Well, that's where you have a lot of like drug delivery systems, especially in pharma land. You'll see like material chemistry, material science. That all falls within that, where you're actually looking at polymers and you're trying to figure out, okay, what can these polymers do? What can they withstand? What can't they withstand? And how can I leverage them to maybe embed drugs in them? Can I load them up with drugs? Can I print drug loaded filament and create something in that space? So that's more in the biochem side. You can also just go more in the biophysics side as well. This includes like biomedical optics. You could do biophysics. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have much experience in the biophysics area because that's just not an area I was very interested in. So I will leave that to the comments. If anyone has experience in more of the biophysics side, please do comment below if you can provide any more input into the biophysics land. Then something else you can go into is medical physics. So think radiologists, right? So you can actually become a radiologist because you can take a lot of classes where you're learning about like ultrasound. You're learning about other ultrasonic like activities or methods, and you can piece together these different things so that, you know, if a radiologist is performing something or need like, I know this is something that we were researching, was creating a mobile ultrasound device so that, you know, if you're out in the field and you just need a quick device that can take an ultrasound right then and there, you can actually make that. So that's more in the medical physics space. And going down the circle, we have clinical professionals. So things that are already in clinical trials. What types of studies can you design? How does it affect humans? Like, do you need to understand one perspective? Do you need to also understand the science perspective and experimenting? How can I connect these two things and actually work in the clinical trial space so that my product is almost ready? I just need to now test it in humans. But what's the best way to make sure I do that in the safest and healthiest way possible? Then we've got stuff more in the computer science realm. So if you're really into bioinformatics, where you're taking genetic sequences and you're creating some sort of AI to analyze that sequence, or you want to go even into telemedicine, where you're looking at something more from a software development perspective, where you're creating some sort of software that can help physicians connect with patients from a telemedicine perspective. You want to do any sort of computational biology, you're taking 3D models of these proteins in drugs, and you're basically creating a system where you can actually visualize these proteins. That all falls within that computational space, computer science space. And related to that, you can even branch off and focus more on the mathematical space. So, because let's say you're creating some sort of 3D protein model, or you're creating some sort of simulation of 100,000 syringes that need to be tested. Maybe you need to just want to only test 100 syringes because that's more practical and it's going to save more money. Well, how do I feed a bunch of different equations into the system so I can actually only test 100 syringes and not 100,000? Because I don't have that capacity as a human to do that many syringes. I want to save money, I want to save time, I want to feed it equations. I know certain things already about tests that I've already run. How can I use that information to then create a new design of experiments, so I only have to simulate a subset of syringes and actually test a subset of syringes and not 100,000 syringes. So you can actually use more of like the mathematical brain within this computer science as well, and you can leverage that. You can do that with proteins. You can look at different structures. You can feed different equations, different factors to then predict different things. Another thing, again, we touched on this already, is the materials engineering portion, where it's more of the biomaterials side. And then lastly, one of my favorites is mechanical engineering. And I get really excited about this because it kind of ties in a lot of different things. So think prosthetics. You can do a lot of things with prosthetics. You can do a lot of things with your biomechanics land. So let's say you're creating some sort of prosthetic. Someone lost their leg, they're an amputee, they need a new leg. You're creating a new leg, but you want to actually understand, okay, if they actually are walking, can that prosthetic actually sustain the force as they're walking? Well, you need to test that. So that's biomechanics. You want to do some of that force testing. You want to twist it around, do some shear testing, see what happens to material, see if the device can sustain that as a whole system. And you can also do things in the field of orthopedics, which is kind of where my heart lies. It's the implant space. You're putting these inside the body, similar to prosthetics, but those are external. The implants are internal. So if you're doing anything like knee replacements, people get that all the time in this day and age. If they're a big runner and they're early in their life, they tend to need a knee replacement. So if you need anything like that, hip replacements, you have a trauma, you need some sort of implant, you need to create the implant, 3D print them. That is all within that biomechanics space. So it gets really exciting because you can actually visualize a lot of these things. You can model, you can design these little things. So I think last time I showed you guys this little thing, I got to create the pores that are in here to create this implant. You can see on the outside we have kind of like a hard shelling here, and it's just really fun because for me, you can really be creative in the way you want to design this implant. And there's so many different ways. That's just one type. Maybe for a different patient, I need something like this, depending on their specific anatomy. And I got to do a lot of things like this, where you're doing patient-specific implant design. So depending on, their actual condition, maybe they have a bigger defect, maybe they have like a smaller defect, you need to create a design and be smart about it, where it can still sustain the load, still sustain everything else, but the design has to be just a little bit different. And can I actually print it very quickly? That's another thing. So I'll reserve that conversation for another video, where I'll just go very deep into my thesis work and my research work in that space. So if you're interested, you get to learn a lot more about it. But I wanted to cover different things that you can do. So a multitude of things you can create. Respiratory devices. So during COVID, we were creating lots of nebulizers at school. We were trying to also do negative pressure systems. People were 3D printing masks all the time. You can also make medical equipment, blood pressure monitors, stethoscopes, anything in that realm. Maybe you want to create a better wheelchair design for people who are older. They need something better. You can create even training products for like CPR use, creating obviously medicines. You can create vaccines, all sorts of different things. So there's a ton of different areas of biomedical engineering that you can get into. And it's kind of endless. The one thing I really love about biomedical engineering is that you can combine all these different areas: chemistry, physics, math, biology, computer science. You can take all of that and you can do it together. You can bring all your knowledge from all these areas and you can put it in one where you're creating something. So it's really unique because, a lot of chemical engineers are just focused in one area and pretty much just stay in chemical engineering. If you're a biologist, you're mostly kind of staying in that area. But as a biomedical engineer, you're an engineer, but you also have the knowledge of all sorts of things. So if you need to ever pivot in your career, you have that flexibility and that opportunity. I will say it's a little bit of a niche because it's kind of specific. Like, you are learning a lot of different things. So obviously you need to be good at what you do and very knowledgeable, but also it is more niche. So I will say the job market isn't as great. Like, if you look at investment bankers, there's jobs all the time. IT, there's jobs all the time. Biomedical engineering, a little bit more niche, but if you're good at what you do, you're knowledgeable, you know what you're doing, you can definitely build a career in that, no problem. And apart from all this, I just talked about different things you can do in corporate. You can go and you can do graduate studies, and you can go down the research pathway. You can go and become a professor if you really want to. If that's your passion, you can definitely pursue that. You can also go and create your own startup. I mean, this is with any major, but you can specifically do this with biomedical engineering. I will say it's a little bit probably tougher because if you're creating a device, there's FDA that you have to get through and the law. So you need to make sure it abides by the law. But if you can get through that, you can definitely create your own startup and get acquired, or you can run it, do whatever you want in that space as well. You can get as creative as you want. So what I'll say is that I just wanted to introduce you guys to what biomedical engineering is, the different opportunities available, tons of different things. So if you are interested, but you have more questions, just feel free to comment below and we'll connect and I'll help answer those questions. Otherwise, I'll see you in a future video. Thanks for listening.